We have an incredible episode of the Church Candy Podcast. Today, Keenan Clark is going to be joining us. Keenan Clark is the young adults pastor at Celebration Church in San Angelo, Texas, and he has amassed almost 100,000 followers between Instagram and TikTok. He's killing it on social media right now. Go give him a follow if you haven't already, and let's jump into the episode. But before we do, I want to invite you, if you've not gotten your free copy of Plan Your Visit Playbook, my new church marketing book, you can go to planyourvisitplaybook.com. I'll put a link in the description, and the book is free. All you've got to do is pay $8.50 for shipping. I'll cover the cost of the book. You just have to pay to get it to you. Now, let's jump into the episode. Welcome to the Church Candy Podcast, the podcast of sweet ministry success. I'm your host, Brady Sticker, and let's jump in. Guys, we have an incredible guest today. I've got Pastor Keenan Clark from Celebration Church in San Angelo. Keenan, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm so good, Brady. Pumped to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Man, I'm so excited about this. If you don't know Keenan, then go open TikTok and he'll probably show up on your For You page. If you've ever engaged in any kind of TikTok preachers before, you're likely to see him on there. Man, you were all over the place. I want to learn a little bit more. Tell me about your ministry background. What kind of led you to, where you're at now in San Angelo?
Yeah. So, again, thanks for that, man. It was super nice of you. But yeah, I've grown up in the ministry. My dad's a pastor. In fact, he's the pastor I serve under now. So I'm on staff at his church. And so I've been doing that I've been on staff for the last 7 years, and I've been traveling and preaching for almost a decade. So I've been preaching consistently for about 10 years. And yeah, I don't know, man. I like I said, I grew up in this thing. I like to joke that, this life I didn't choose it. It chose me. But yeah, I felt a call very early on in my life, probably 17, 18. And I really got lit on fire with the gospel. And I'd been saved my whole life, but I think I had I saw the gospel for what it was for me. I had never really backslid. And I don't even like to use that terminology, but you know what I mean? I'd never really thrown my faith away. I think it solidified in that moment as my own faith. And yeah, in that moment, I realized there was no greater thing to give your life to than the preaching of the gospel. And I really felt called to do it. I really felt like God was telling me what I had to say about the story mattered. And so from there, I went to a Bible college in Dallas, Texas called Christ for the Nations, which you and I both went. And yeah, so I went there in 2013. I graduated in 2015, and then I moved back home. And it was during that time that I started utilizing social media. And while I was at CFNI, I built a pretty significant platform on Instagram. I ended up over a course of several years amassing 57,000 followers on Instagram, traveling all over the world, doing conferences all over the world, camps all over the country, and even internationally. And later on, we can maybe get into this story here in a little bit, but I felt like God asked me to lay that down and sacrifice that and trust him for my influence. And if he did it once, he can do it again. And so I did. But anyway, yeah, God's just opened a lot of doors for me through the internet. I believe in it, and really excited to get to talk about that, because I think TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff is very powerful.
Yeah, it for sure is. I want to touch on that a little bit. So you grew a following while you were in Bible college,
Yeah.
and then just Holy Spirit convicted you, and you just got rid of it. What? Tell me more.
Yeah. So yeah, you didn't even know I was gonna throw that out there. But yeah, over the course of probably 5 years, so it started at Bible school. I started doing those little, just those kind of coffee photos and landscape photos of downtown city landscapes and stuff. And then just putting something about Jesus in the caption, because that was just super popular at the time. I started doing it, and I started amassing followers left and right. So it was within probably 8 months, I hit 10K. And then eventually living in Dallas really helped, because there's a lot of content, and then there's a huge community there. And at that time, a huge Instagram community. So Insta meets were a thing. We would all get together and meet up, take pictures of each other, tag each other. So you get a lot of followers that way, and I built a cool community. But then probably 4 years after I graduated from Bible school, so I was probably 24, I was traveling and preaching. Had been doing that every summer. Had, like I said, about 57,000 followers. And I literally just felt like the Lord one day that like Instagram was not a problem. Instagram was not a trip hazard. It wasn't like I was like dealing with like secret stuff. At times, like, the followers had gotten to my head, and then the Lord was quick to correct that. But at this moment, it really wasn't the case. And I just remember I was sitting on vacation, and the Lord said, I want you to sow your influence. That's what I felt God asked me. He said, I want you to sow your influence, like give it to me. And I'm very familiar with the concept of sowing and reaping, and you reap of the same kind that you sow. And so I felt like God said this. He said, if you'll trust me with what you call a lot of influence, I'll trust you with what I call a lot of influence. Wow. And at the time, TikTok wasn't a thing. I was single. I just had the Instagram account. And so I was like, all right, God, let's do it. And I got off that vacation. I got some Wi-Fi, and I let everybody know what was happening just because I didn't want to seem sketchy. And I shut that thing down, and it's never been activated since. And so I managed to save my handle just because I just wanted the same handle like for any future Instagram accounts. Yeah. But that one, I drove a stake right through its heart, and it's never been resurrected since. And so,
Jeez,
but yeah.
bro.
And the cool thing is this, is that 6 months after that moment, my wife, the woman who would become my wife, I didn't know it in this moment, but the woman who became my wife DM'd me on that new Instagram account. So the one that didn't have any followers. Wow. She DM'd me 6 months later. And then whenever she found out I used to have the big account, she told me, she was like, I would have never DM'd you had you had that many followers. And I was like, God, if the only reason I deleted that account was so that I could get my wife, I would do it every day, all over again. And so, yeah, it was just a really cool thing. I didn't really realize what God was up to at the time.
Bro, that is amazing. And I think that's something that you see all the time, even on way larger scales right now. Right. A pastor, and I've heard it said different ways, where their reach, right, and their talent and their gifts outweighs their character. And obviously this wasn't the case with you, but even if it was a pride thing, or even like, because heck, I know if I was sitting there looking at 60,000 Instagram followers, I would probably struggle with some pride. I would probably be like, man, this is pretty cool. Like, I did this. Like, that would be something that I'm always having to personally remind myself, like, hey, Jesus, I'm chasing you. Like, God, I'm chasing the calling that you have for my life. I'm not chasing the influence. I'm just chasing you. If that brings influence, awesome. I'll take it and I'll use it to glorify you. Yeah. But man, that is so honorable that you did that. That's incredible, dude. Man. That's incredible. So tell me what the transition was like, going from, okay, 0 followers after you had almost 50-60,000. Yeah. Tell me about that transition and kind of what made you want to, how did you get to where you are now? Like, do you even know? I know we just went over like, no, don't chase the numbers, all of that, but like, how many followers are you at right now between like Instagram and TikTok?
Okay. So the crazy thing is, it was a slow trickle. So that was 2019 that I deleted that account, right? Mm-hmm. Summer of 2019. Then I met my wife the very beginning of 2020. This right now at the taping of this, it's 2022. You could be watching this in 2043. You know what I mean? That's just so everyone knows. 2022. In February of 2022, I had 5,000 Instagram followers of this year, February. And right now I'm sitting at 21 points.
Yeah, for people that don't know.
It's June, and right now I'm sitting at 21.6 thousand. So, since February, I've gained like 16,000 followers.
What's funny is I will see, and you don't know this, but I'll see people that I went to high school with, have no relation to CFNI, have no relation to Celebration St. Angelo. They'll reshare your videos on their like Instagram story, and I'm like, what? How do you even know? And that's whenever it clicked me, is like, dang, Keenan's doing a lot of really cool stuff. And like, we went to CFNI at different times, so we weren't like super connected there. And so that's why I wanted to reach out to you. But bro, so just over the past couple months, you've seen this growth.
Yeah, just over the last couple months. And the really cool thing is that a lot of it, obviously the Lord is behind it. I can't explain it. Because even though even with the thing I'm about to share with you, it doesn't happen for everybody this way, but I've been collaborating with other accounts. A lot of them reach out to me asking if like I'll collab with them. And then some of them, like I just float the question out like, hey, if you ever want to collab, like I would love to, because that's a new feature on Instagram. And I just think it's so cool that we are now reaching more people through collaborating than we were by just posting our little content by ourselves on our
Yeah.
pages. And I just think that's so biblical that like one can put 1,000 to flight, but two can put 10,000 to flight, right? Like we're able to reach more when we team up and we do things together. And so, yeah, it's all been through kind of collaborating. But then I see other guys who collaborate with the same accounts and their account hasn't grown at all. Like they're still sitting at the exact same follower count. And so I really don't know what God's doing. I know that I honored him in 2019 when I shut that account down, and I knew he would do something. I didn't know it'd be like this. But yeah, so I can't really explain it, but I can just tell you what I'm doing and it seems to be working. But to answer your question you asked a second ago, between TikTok and Instagram, I have almost 100,000 followers combined. And
That's
so
awesome.
I think it's 70 something thousand on TikTok, and then 21.6 on Instagram. So
That's awesome,
nearly
man. That's
100.
awesome. Yeah, and I love that new feature where you can collab
Yeah.
on Instagram because I've even seen that with my Instagram Reels, which all of my content is for pastors. It's not necessarily
Right.
just for your everyday Christian and believer, kind of like how yours is. And I just took a clip from my podcast, and this guest, he has a pretty big following on Instagram, and he accepted the collab. And believe it or not, that was the one video that took off, and I saw my follower count go up a little bit after that.
Come on.
And so I definitely think the collab feature on Instagram is going to be super, super beneficial
Without
to
it.
the local church too.
Yes.
Like think of all the things that you can do in your ministry by collabing with other like local ministries or just
Yeah.
organizations, businesses in your community. You could do a collab post and you're not just reaching the people that like your Instagram, you're reaching the people that like their pages too. And so
Exactly.
pastors listening to this, you can get creative with the other organizations in your city and the other people and do a collab with them, whether you do some kind of event or a serve day, or you can use your noggin and try to come up with some ideas. But I definitely think that is huge and a great resource that Instagram has.
Yeah, without a doubt. And one of the big things I would like, just like a practical little tip I would tell anyone is if you can make your video a reel versus just a video you are posting, make it a reel. Okay. Instagram Reels is the future of Instagram. That's where everything's at.
Yes.
They've adopted a similar algorithm to TikTok where they are kicking those videos out to not just people who follow you and not just people who follow the account you're collaborating with, but kicking it out to everyone. And I would also say this, don't be afraid to reuse content. That's one of the things I do when collaborating with people. I remember I posted a video and collaborated with somebody and it did really well. I think it got like 200,000 views or something like that. And then a month later, I collaborated with a different account and I posted the same video, and the video that already got like 200,000 views on Instagram ended up getting 1.4 million views. And
Wow.
that the account I collaborated with second had less followers than the account I collaborated with first, but the video did better. And it's because of that algorithm, right? And so that's why you need to be posting on Instagram Reels. I see these guys wasting great content by posting it just as a video. And I'm like, this could have been an Instagram Reel and it would have done so well. And so that would be a huge tip to people is utilize Reels. Don't just post videos.
Yeah, I hear all the time. Even my wife, she refuses to download TikTok. And she sent me a meme and she's like, no, I don't get on TikTok. I watch Instagram Reels from videos that were popular on TikTok 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, like an
Yeah.
adult.
Yeah. So true. The watermarks jumping around.
Yes,
So
yes.
true.
And so I'm a big fan of Instagram Reels. I've seen a lot of growth in the things that we're doing at Church Candy. And I definitely think pastors and churches, like you could definitely take advantage of
Without a
that. And
doubt.
so, Keenan, man, what kind of motivated you to start pursuing and posting more and more content on Instagram and on TikTok?
Honestly, I adopted this philosophy. I heard it somewhere, so this is not original to me. I can't remember who said it. I want to say I heard it was Rich Wilkerson Jr. But he said, whatever the church avoids, the devil will invade. And so I really took that to heart. And I was like, we've got to be where the people are, you know? And one of my biggest heroes in the world is the late Reverend Billy Graham. Billy Graham was a formidable figure when it comes to the advancement of the kingdom. I mean, who doesn't love Billy Graham? But one of the things Billy Graham was great at was using the technology that was available to him. You know, he was adamant about having a newspaper readily available. I mean, having TV. He was one of the very first people to ever put preaching on TV to air his crusades. And I don't think that there's a coincidence that he is probably the most famous and effective evangelical figure within the last 200 years, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know that there will ever be another Billy Graham, but Billy Graham wasn't afraid to try new things and try things that the church would demonize. The church loves to demonize certain things, but I think whenever you're comfortable in your calling and you're comfortable in the assignment that's on your life, you don't need the church to approve what you're doing, because you're called to lead the church, not be led by the church. You know, and sometimes in order to lead the church, you got to be ahead of the church, and the church doesn't always understand. And it's because they don't have the privilege to stand where you stand. And so I think that's a huge thing, is understanding that we've got to be where people are at. Is the internet gross? Is the internet filthy? You bet. And the reason it is because people like you and I have avoided doing what we're called to do amongst the filth, amongst the you know, the miry clay, so to speak, you know, amongst the people that we're actually called to reach. And so I really believe that, again, whatever we avoid, the devil will invade, and we got to go where the people are at.
Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, I feel like there was someone in the Bible that was really known for going and being near and doing ministry with the people that were considered of the filth
I
and
can't think
looked
of
down
who it
upon
is.
what. Wait, it was Jesus, right?
Oh,
That's
you're
literally
right.
that's like that was like his thing.
Yeah, you're
Bro,
so right, dude.
I love it. I love it 100%. So what advice would you offer to any pastor that wants to start taking their ministry and putting it online on Instagram and on TikTok?
Man, I would say be yourself and do it now. Stop putting it off. Someday is not a day in the week. One day is not a day in the week. We got a Sunday, we got a Monday, we got Tuesday, but we don't got someday. Okay.
Right.
So you gotta start now. And I think there's an urgency to it. And I know that I saw a snippet of you talking to Pastor Alex Suber, so shout him out real quick. But he said TikTok is probably going to change the algorithm very soon. This may be the last year where virality is as easy as it is right now. They're probably going to begin to put a chokehold on that, right? And so I would say, if you're waiting, I don't know what you're waiting on, because it's only going to get harder. And so I would say start building now, and just be yourself. I'm friends with a guy who is 65 years old. He's over all next gen at Gateway, Robert Morris's Gateway. And he's like 65 years old, and he has like 30 something thousand followers on TikTok.
Wow.
65 years old, 30 something thousand followers on TikTok. And it's all he does is get on there and pray. He posts a video of him praying for people. And a lot of it is like he's praying as a father over people. And we have a very fatherless generation. And some people can think, well, I don't dance, or I don't wear cool clothes and preach little trendy sermons. Well, you can pray.
Yeah.
You can step into that gap and be a father. It's not about following a trend. It's about following who God's called you to be. And if it's anointed, it'll work. And that's my thing, is he's 65 years old, built 30,000 followers on TikTok by just getting on there and praying as a father over a fatherless generation. And I think it'll work. I mean, you just never really know. I would have never thought that my preaching, I never would have guessed that thousands, millions. I'm reaching, if you look at my analytics, literally millions of people every single month. I think last month I reached almost 2 million people on Instagram alone. I never would have thought that 2 million people a month would want to listen to what I have to say. Man. But I just started saying it, and I was shocked by the fact that God's evidently on it. And I just really want to encourage you. It's not just your local church that needs your voice. The world needs your voice. And that doesn't mean you got to put a lot of pressure on yourself. I've heard of people taking that way too seriously, and even like I heard recently of a guy who was taping and in front of his live church audience, and he didn't like the way he said something. So he was like, hold on, I'm going to redo that whole point again for the online audience because this is going to go out later. And like, it was so, but it felt so hoaxy. It felt so hinky. And so I'm not saying that we go to that extreme where that's all we care about is what we're presenting online, but present yourself online. That's a whole nother campus we're talking about. I remember I was talking to a guy recently. He was talking about how, yeah, we need that camera, but it's $5,000. And I was like, bro, just here's how you have to think about this. Inside of that camera is a 1,000,000-seat auditorium. You're going to tell me you wouldn't buy a 1,000,000-seat auditorium that would be filled for $5,000? That camera is a campus. That's what that is. You're buying a whole nother campus. And that's the way you got to look at it, is we are reaching people who would never set foot in our building, and we need to do it. And I believe we need to do it with excellence. I believe we need to do it to the utmost and to the best of our ability. But the biggest thing is just do it. Even if it's just with an iPhone and it's not an Android. If you got an Android, you're not called. But but if you just do it is the thing. Start. And it really is a trial and error sort of thing. You just kind of see what works and like, okay, this is landing, this is not, let's not do that again, and just realize that God will lead you and guide you as you go.
Man, something I heard once is don't make the best video, make a video.
Come on.
Because if you want it to be the best, you're never going to make it. You're going to keep putting it off. You're like, oh, I've got to set up my fancy camera. I got to make sure I got my nice mic.
My ring light.
Yeah. And if that's the case, you're never going to make it.
Exactly.
And so, man, I love everything you are saying. But let's be honest, man. It can be a little bit discouraging, even if you are getting a lot of views and you're doing all the things online. But then Sunday morning comes around. And you've got your church family there, right? Have you seen any like butts and seats or people actually showing up to a church service, or you're over the young adults, like anyone coming to young adults that specifically found you on Instagram or found you on TikTok organically?
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. And of course, not everybody who finds you on Instagram is going to come up to you and tell you, hey, I found you on Instagram. You know what I mean? So it's that rule of like, for every one person that says it, there were 10 that didn't, you know what I mean? But yeah, no, the craziest thing is that we've had people come to our young adult service who either saw a video of me preaching on Instagram or TikTok, and they're like, oh my gosh, like this guy's local, like this guy's in San Angelo, like no way. Or they saw a video of like my wife, Beth, and I just being cute or something. And they're like, oh my gosh, and they end up finding out we're in San Angelo. So yeah, like it literally it's not just an online platform. Now, are we reaching people all over the country and even the world that will never set foot in our local church or give to our local church? You bet. But it actually is beginning to translate to people literally uprooting or getting out of their house and coming to our local church because they found us on their For You page. And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy when that stuff happens.
Yeah. And I would encourage any pastor or church leader listening, that shouldn't be the goal.
No.
Because like I know people that have been doing this for a long time and they haven't seen that. And so I think your whole goal with this needs to be, hey, we're doing ministry in person to all these people. Let's take what we're doing and do it in front of a camera, and let's reach even more people with it. And if people end up coming and getting involved and investing their time and their finances into the vision of our church, awesome. But that shouldn't be the goal. So tell me, I saw that you partnered with Faithful, I think. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Faithful is basically, as I've mentioned it before, it's basically Patreon, but for Christian content creators and pastors, influencers. It's basically a way that you can be creating content where people who are really like diehard followers of your ministry, or they really enjoy your teaching, they can pay a subscription every month to get exclusive content from you that is only available on Faithful. So like for me, I am doing a daily Bible devotional that's anywhere between 3 to 7 minutes long every single day. And that is only going to be on my Faithful. I could use that stuff as like content for Instagram or stuff like that. But because I care about Faithful, and I honestly could use the extra income, I'm only creating content for that. Now, is it getting seen by millions of people? No, you know, but it is something that I'm investing my time into every single day. And then I also have been doing like a theology teaching once a week, where people can, subscribe for on a higher tier to access that as well. And so, yeah, I'm loving it, man. I really enjoy it. I've been seeing so many people who are like really getting a ton out of the devotionals. And this is the coolest thing is the people in our church have subscribed. Many of them have.
Wow.
And they literally will come up to me every Sunday and they're like, Pastor Keenan, your faithful devotionals are changing my life, and it takes you from being this figure that they only can receive from on a Sunday, and it allows them to receive from you on a daily basis. But in the same hand, you get to receive from them because they are paying to access that stuff. And so, yeah, I just see God creates win-win scenarios. And to me, faithful is a win-win scenario. It's one thing for somebody just to give to your ministry, but it's a whole nother thing when they're giving, but they're also receiving something on a daily basis that's substantial to their spiritual walk. So yeah, I would highly encourage any pastors out there, jump on Faithful. It doesn't cost you anything other than the time to create the content. And some of you guys are already creating that content every day. You're just not getting paid for it. So why wouldn't you want to get paid for that every single month? And so it really it's become a nice check in the mail. Actually, it's direct deposit at the first of every month that my wife and I can use. It's actually helping me make my car payment every month. That was kind of my goal. It's like, hey, I'd like for Faithful to just pay for this. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe Faithful could pay for this. And so I've worked my way up. And so now it is making more than just paying my car payment, and which is nice. That helps. Every little bit helps. And so I have little tricks and tips on how to get people on there because that alone can be hard. But I would just encourage somebody to start. Just check it out, Faithful. Or you can go to my Instagram and you can find a link to Faithful and check it out for yourself.
Man, that's so cool. I like that so much because I'll have people in our ministry at our church like, oh, can we, how can we give to you? Like when everything you're doing, not me specifically, but some of our leaders. And whenever I was more involved in like student ministry and stuff like that,
Right.
I had a couple people say that. And I think this is a good opportunity because there's people in your church listening right now. Keenan, yes,
Mhm.
you, but also the people watching this in the future that would love to be able to invest into you personally and
Mhm.
invest into your ministry. So don't think of this as I just feel weird about charging people for this. No, they don't have to pay for that. You're creating free content every Sunday when you
It's true.
preach. You're doing all of that for free. This is just for people that do want to invest in the ministry that you're doing, and
That.
you're giving them good, valuable Bible studies and devotions out of that, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, without a
so
doubt.
I would encourage you, like the Bible talks about all the time, like in business, even though this isn't really a business, but like if you think about it, God doesn't like an uneven scale, right?
Right.
An uneven scale is unjust. And so if someone perceives the value of what you're giving in the devotionals and in the little Bible studies and the theology, little seminars you're giving on
Yeah.
faithful, if someone sees that, hey, that's valuable and me investing into this pastor is valuable, even if I don't go and consume all of the content every single day,
Right.
um, then I'm gonna sow into that. I'm gonna invest into them and what they're doing. And so I think that's super cool. It almost sounds like this is what like OnlyFans was supposed to be before the
It was,
porn industry took it
it was
over.
exactly. I'm hesitant to say stuff like that just because some people get weird when you mention OnlyFans. I have never been on OnlyFans. I have no idea what it
Yeah.
looks like. I'm only talking about what I've heard through the grapevine, but it apparently is kind of what that was supposed to be. Like for bands, OnlyFans was supposed to be for bands to create content or any sort of creator, like a public personality to create content that their fans could pay to access every month. And then sadly, the porn industry took over. And so
Yeah.
now it's a negative connotation.
Yeah. And that's the thing that sucks too. Like if you're just involved in culture anywhere outside of the four church walls, in
Right.
the Christian bubble, like you're going to hear about that. And
Yeah.
so, I think this is a really cool opportunity for pastors to, have additional income and let people that want to invest into your ministry personally.
Without it.
So man, what do you think is the biggest mistake that you see pastors make whenever it comes to TikTok, Instagram, or just like social media in general?
Man, there's a lot. I think there's a lot. Um, I think that a lot of times we can post things, and I say we because like I'll throw myself into this because I've made the mistake too. But we can post things and we're trying to preach to other pastors in order
Mm,
to get invited to speak or to gain respect. So we're saying things that only really pastors can appreciate. But the people who are actually watching our videos don't have the biblical literacy to even understand what we are saying. And so one of the, I think amongst guys like who are our age, I don't know how old you are, Brady, but I'm 27. And so I think amongst a lot of guys our age, when we post a preaching clip, the tendency is, I hope another pastor sees this and thinks, my God, this guy is called. We have to put him on our conference for this summer or for next year. Somebody reach out to him, I think that's kind of at least one of the undertones of our motivation for posting stuff. And I would say we've got to stop preaching to each other and preach to the lost, right?
mm.
Even if the clip is something that people are going to be like, yeah, everybody knows that. No, they don't. Like, please get that out of your head. They do not. All your little friends that you golf with on Tuesday afternoons, yeah, they know it. But the people you're called to reach, they don't. We have the most biblically illiterate generation America has ever had right now. And so that's why I'm so adamant about not removing rungs of the ladder. We've been doing that. Like, we remove rungs and we demand everybody kind of start here, when it's like, no, we kind of have to give context to who Paul is every time we bring him up, right?
Yeah.
We kind of need to give context to who Peter is every time we bring him up. I had a guy in our young adult ministry recently tell me, if you've not preached on it, I don't know about it. I was like,
Wow.
what? He's like, yeah, literally, if you haven't preached a Bible story, I've never heard it. I only know the stuff you've told me. I only know the stuff I've heard you preach. And that, I already knew we were dealing with a lot of biblically illiterate people, but I think that really put it in context because I was sitting across the table from somebody. This was no longer just a straw man or a concept or a demographic in my mind. This was a dude I just paid for his coffee. And I was like, it's you I'm thinking about when I talk about context. It's you I'm helping whenever I break it down, who Paul is and why it's important that why that his words matter and that he wrote a third of the New Testament. You know what I mean? Like, it's you. And I would say that for any pastors out there, you have those people in your church, but also most of the people that are going to be engaging with your content online are completely biblically illiterate. And that's why the things that we post need to actually move the needle forward. That needs to actually be helping people to grow in a relationship with God. And so shying away from things like the love of God, shying away from things like the gospel, shying away from things like grace is not helping anybody, right? Like, we really do need to talk about that, but also talking about the hard truth, okay? Where we get so ambiguous that we just seem like this big love fest that has no rules. And if we just slap the name Jesus on it, it's all good. That's not helping anyone either. So I really think that our preaching needs to fully embody truth and grace. Yeah, it really needs to be the marriage of the two. That's what the Bible says. That's what John chapter 1 says. John's prologue into his gospel literally says, Jesus came full of grace and truth. We've got to marry the two. And so I just think our preaching needs to get more refined. I think our preaching needs to be more defined in who we are speaking to and not leave anyone out just because we want to feel like an academic giant while we are in
Yeah.
our pulpits. You know what I mean? And so I think those are really big things. And I also think when it just comes to Instagram Reels or TikTok, I think a lot of times, like, the first 10 seconds of your video is so important. The first
Yes.
10, like, if your video is 60 seconds, that first 10 seconds is almost the most important part of the video, because
First
that's when
five
people are,
seconds, even.
first 5 seconds. Yeah, Brady, I'll give you that. People are deciding, am I going to listen to this or am I going to scroll? Right. And so when your video starts like really boring, but you're like, oh man, it gets really good at the end. I think like it might be worth cropping some of that early stuff off if you can, and the rest of the video makes sense, and just get right to the powerhouse meat. Okay. There's so many videos that I'm like, I really love the way I set this up, But I think that first like 20 seconds, if you're not a hardcore believer, you're not going to care. You're not going to care about it.
Yeah.
And I care about reaching everybody. And so there have been times where I'm like, yeah, it's really good. And even like, this is going to give me preaching points with other pastors, but I got to leave that off in order to reach
Yeah.
the people I'm called to reach. And so you just crop that out. And the video does so much better when you do that. I'm telling you, it really does.
One thing that you might even be able to take from this and other pastors listening, like if you can have a really good hook that gets their attention for the full video is great. And something that I stole from Gary Vee, if you watch his TikToks and his Instagram reels, the very first few seconds is just like a sentence of him saying something that's really intriguing that like hooks you in. It's like, what? And then it like snaps and then it goes and it plays back from the beginning of the video. So what he's doing, so you can even take one of your like big points or one like a hook that's what the video is about that's going to get their attention to stop scrolling and then immediately start the video over and play that through again. So some of that stuff in there that might not be as attention grabbing at first, but is important for the context of what we're talking about. You can just take that and edit. That's something that I do, and I even coach pastors to do with that as well. We recently started doing that with like, there's going to be clips on my Instagram and my TikTok from this interview with Keenan that you'll see. And I'm going to be honest, when we're done here, I might tell Keenan, hey, I want us to get some hooks that we're going to just record and post afterwards, to have for the clips and stuff. But man, it's so good. Everything you're saying there. One thing I struggle with is thinking that everything I know, people know as well. So like I had a pastor tell me, your duh is someone else's whoa. You know what I mean? Like your duh, of course, is someone else's like, whoa, that makes so much sense. So don't forget about the basics in your content. And that's something I struggle with, even making content on social media for churches and for pastors. Like I have a new church that got started with our program and they're like, so do we need an Instagram? And I'm like, yes, you need an Instagram. Like let's come on. Like it's one of those things that you need an Instagram, and they weren't even there yet. So I'm so sorry, because they also told me they listen to all my podcasts. And so if you're listening to this, no, I love you and it's okay. But like, yes, you need an Instagram. I wanted to ask you, how often are you posting clips of you preaching versus like talking head into the camera type footage?
I think that's a great question. I would say it's probably 50-50. I was talking to a friend recently who has like an Instagram coach. And so I was trying to harvest information from him without having to pay an Instagram coach. And he told me, I asked him, I said, should I focus more on the videos of me literally speaking to the camera in like a studio looking setting, or should I just keep posting preaching clips? And he was like, never stop posting preaching clips, because that shows your audience you have authority outside of social media. That it shows them that you're an authoritative voice. People come and listen to you even offline. And that gives you even more authority online. It shows that you're actually like the real deal. And so I never thought of it that way. So I'm honestly, I have to be real, I'm still playing with it. I'm trying to fine tune it. Again, I've only been at this to this degree for a few months now. And so I kind of just post whatever I've got. And again, sometimes I'll repost things I've already posted before.
Sweet, man. I love it. Anyways, all that being said, man, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to really pour in and invest into these pastors and church leaders listening. Any final tips or advice or thoughts on the whole social media for ministry?
Yeah, I'm realizing I left off one thing that I really wanted to share that you and I kind of talked about off pod. And I think it's so helpful, is that when it comes to Instagram Reels specifically, but you can do this on TikTok as well. I always geotag the video in San Angelo so that it shows up on San Angelo searches, right? Even if like, say I was preaching a conference and I pulled the clip from a conference that I was preaching at, and the conference was in New York or Chicago or something like that, I'm still going to geotag San Angelo, because the people that can literally find me in person are going to find me in San Angelo. And so no matter what the video is, I geotag where my actual ministry is at. And I would highly encourage anybody else to do the same.
Man, that is a great hack. This is a great hack to reach people in your church's
Exactly.
area with your content. Man,
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. Keenan,
Thanks.
thank you so much for joining. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, all of those things. There's not many Keenan Clarks running around, especially white Keenan Clarks running around. So I should be fairly easy to find. But yeah, you can find me on all of those, just Keenan Clark _ on Instagram. And once you find that, you can pretty much find everything else.
Awesome, man. Sweet. Thanks so much for joining us. And hey, guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in the next one. Man, what an incredible interview. Some amazing insight from Keenan today. Thank you so much for Soulbox, the group that recorded our podcast intro and outro music. And if you have not already gotten your free copy of Plan Your Visit Playbook, this is my new church marketing book. It breaks down our strategy on how at Church Candy, how we help churches get between 20 and 50 new guests every single week. If you've not gotten your free book, what are you doing? You can go to planyourvisitplaybook.com. I'll put a link in the description and you can get your free copy today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.